Some mountains in men are bigger than you think. Some rivers so fast, hell, you can't take a drink. Some burdens so heavy.
Hey folks, today we're going to be talking about one-time pads. These are guaranteed security for preppers and patriots or anyone else who's just interested in some low-tech cryptography and encryption. So, let's start with the parts of the pad itself. It's actually relatively simple. There's the letter to number cipher. I don't know if that's the exact correct term used in the industry, but it basically looks something like this. This is obviously not not what you want, but 1, 2, 3, 4 through 9, 0, 1, 2, and then all the letters of the alphabet right there. This is just for training purposes only. The other part is the key, and this is the string of random numbers that are used to encipher the message into an unrecognizable and undecipherable code. For example, this right here. That's just kind of obviously, you can see a lot of repeating. I was just running my fingers across the keyboard, but just as an example, it's just this string of random numbers. So, this part, the letter to number cipher, is just a simple substitution of letters to numbers. So it's basically, this one-time pad's kind of a using a double enciphering, but not really, because what the substitution ciphers are really easy to break, but this is more just to make it easier when you're, because if you just had letters to numbers with the key, it'd be too messy. So it's basically a simple substitution of letters and numbers. The example is simple, and like I said, it's not recommended, only for training. And you can choose any configuration that you want as far as how you want box to look or whatever. However, don't repeat any numbers in the same column, only in the corresponding column. And what I mean by that is, you see you got all these numbers here. You do not want to have 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Why? So let's just say this, where my cursor is 2. So if you've got 0, 2, that could either be B or C. You can see what I mean. Well, that's not necessarily going to be that huge of a deal in that exact instance. It can just lead to way too many. So now 1, 2 can be Q or P, and 2, 2 can either be T or U. In a long message, and you don't want to have your intended recipient think that the message is wrong or garbled or not understanding what you're meaning. Also, you'll see this kind of later on, a little bit more of a advanced, or not really advanced, but a less simple letter number cipher here. But I would recommend repeating numbers. I make mine in the later on where I show you that I make it about 4 or 5 down this way, and I repeat numbers, letters that are often used in the English language. S's, T's, R's, O's, E's, those are used a lot more often than Z's. So by putting these in multiple spots in here, T could be 2, 2, but it could also be, say, 0, 8. So it's just an added little bit of layer. I don't think it'd make that huge of a difference, but I just do it because it makes me feel a little bit better, sleep better at night. The key. This is not something that you want to create for yourself. You don't want to just sit down and type up, a bunch of what you feel are random numbers. If you absolutely had to, I would probably do something along the lines of rolling dice and doing it that way. That would be a lot more random and less able to be patterns to be found if you're rolling dice and versus just you picking numbers out of your head. The best way to do that is to use a true random number generator. I forgot to put number in there. A true random number generator. There are 2 types of random number generators: true random generators, TRNG, and pseudo random number generators. Those are PRNG for the acronym. The pseudo random number generators are generated by computers using an algorithm, using a seed algorithm. basically something is used to input these numbers, this algorithm, into the computer, and it randomizes the seed in the algorithm itself. Basically, just kind of, I shouldn't say randomizes the numbers, but what it really does is it just kind of spews forth random numbers from that initial seed. This is decent for many uses, but pseudo-random generators are not foolproof, and they can result in repeated strings in time, depending on how good that algorithm is, how good that pseudo-random generator is. It could take a very, 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 very long time before any string or there's any repeating numbers. But because that there is that small amount, and if in a pinch, yeah, I'd use a pseudo-random number generator. There's a lot of good ones out there. If I could not get to a true random number generator, would I feel okay using a pseudo? Yeah, I'd feel probably pretty decent about it if I knew it was one of the good ones, like Lava Rand or something like that, Lava RND. But there's just that sliver of possibility that I'd feel a lot better if knowing that I use a true random number generator. If a code breaking organization with the right equipment and input and funds found out what pseudo random number generator you used, it could be used against you to break it. The true random number generators gather random numbers from outside sources and cannot be repeated. For example, random.org uses atmospheric white noise to generate the random numbers. I think it's BitHub. I can't remember the name off the top of my head now, but they use a Geiger counter and radioactive decay of certain objects. I believe it's salt to generate the random numbers. While it is not the best, I think, in the grand scheme of things, if you had to put things in levels of you having your own true random number generator versus getting it off the internet, getting it off the internet would not be the best source to generate these numbers. But to be able to produce your own true high quality random numbers, it would take a decent investment of money, more than most people would be willing to pay. I shouldn't say more than most could afford. Most people could probably afford it. It's just what it's going to give you is not going to be as useful as, say, the amount of money that it would take, hundreds of dollars, probably actually even more than that, upwards of thousands, a few thousand, to really get a good system set up. It's not that most people can't afford that. It's just most people go like, do I really need these many numbers? So take precautions, such as using virtual private networks and IP maskers and stuff like that when you go to these online sources to gather your random numbers. I would recommend large strings of random numbers, 50 or longer. Really, in all actuality, I'd probably go with 100 or more. You do not want to reuse the numbers of a string in a message, since you will want to only use one key for every message that you're sending. If you have small keys, then you can really only send small messages, unless you want to send it. If you have 50 or less, you're going to be sending a few sentences, having to and then reuse another key and go through that whole deal to make the other part of the message, etc., etc. By having larger strings of random numbers, I really would recommend having 100 plus, give or take around 100, and that'll allow you to send a decent sized message, really, and not have to keep on repeating yourself over and over again. Since it takes two numbers in each string per letter, in a 50 number string you only have 25 letters, so a message could only be, as you can see, hi, my name is John, I'm fine, okay, exclamation point. And that's just with the 50 number key. So as you can see, it's not advantageous for you to have only 50. So with 100, you could do double that. Brevity, shortened to the point, will always rule. So you may want to shorten words. It depends if you really don't want to, but for the sake of your own time and effort, I would really make whatever messages that you're sending shorten to the point. And also want to shorten words, kind of like how modern internet slang does, as much as I hate to say that. As you can see, kind of a little bit shortening and using kind of slang terms instead of saying, hi, my name is John, I'm fine, okay. Hi, name John, no H. I'm Fin, okay. I'm Finn, okay. And people could probably figure that out. Use shorthand, like I said, with the internet slang. Instead of saying "Are you okay?" it could be the letter R, the letter U, and then OK. Or agree to certain acronyms beforehand. Some things that you may be talking about quite often, or acronyms that you both know, and make sure you both know them so that you can throw those in there. And not that you're throwing in an acronym that the recipient's never heard and they're scratching their head. So make sure there's kind of an understanding between the two of you. There can be spaces if you want to, and you can add symbols and punctuations, basically whatever you want to put down on your key, dashes, periods, exclamation points, question marks, whatever you want to do. However, I would not use it much just to save space. I would really, if you're going to be using punctuation, to really accentuate that this is a question or that this is an important thing that you want them to focus on. As well as spaces, I really wouldn't really use them unless you feel that it's necessary to whatever you're trying to say, delineate those two messages that you're sending. Have at the end of your messages, and have this pre-agreed upon, a symbol that will indicate that the message is over. So I would have them for each page of the pad that you have. I prefer to use 10 or less keys per, say, like letter number cipher type deal, and per pad, just so that it's a lot more random. And so let's just say, for the sake of training right now, that ZZ signals the end of the message, or ... or ABC or something, whatever you want to do. Change it up. Don't make it the same every single time. But this is a way so there's no misunderstanding or wondering if there was more in the message, that might have been lost, or going like, okay, I'm not really sure if you wanted to know more or what, And that's also why you want to have larger keys so that you have time to ask the question, plus indicate that it's the end of the message. Okay, now into the kind of nitty-gritty. Sending a message. Get your message, and you want to transcribe it given the letter number cipher on the keypad. Plain text, that's a fancy word of saying, in regular English as you can read it, the plain text message that we're going to be sending is "Hi, I'm okay," which is going to be, with no spaces, HIIM okay. Since H in the cipher equals 08, I equals 09, I equals 09, M equals 16, O equals 14, K equals 18, your message is, as you can see here, this is not the encoded message. This is just a simple substitution of letters for the number. If you sent this would easily be decrypted, because as you're sending a message, unless you have, even if you had 3 A's, 3 B's, 3 C's, over time, they would be able to figure out by how many times the certain combination of numbers shows up, and that will, obviously if you see a bunch of 01s, it's probably not going to be a Z. Nobody talks with that many Z's. And it'll be easy to guess by the frequency of certain number combinations as to what letters they might be, and then from there it's really pretty simple to break down. So this is not the encoded message. Note, do not write it as 8 for H. So as we see, H right here. So you're going to be, when you're doing this, I forgot to mention this in the beginning, you're going to be doing left to top. Or I guess you could do it from top to left, but make sure that this is something that you understand and your recipient understands most, if not all, that I've ever seen, it's always this number is first, then whatever number up here. But if you want to change it up, you can. Just always make sure that your recipient, that both you and whoever, as far as 1 or 20 people that you're going to be communicating with, know these basic rules. So, as we can see, H is 0, 8. You do not want to write it as, if you take this 0 away, when you add that key in, and then you send the enciphered message, and then they try to translate it using the same key to the original message, they're not going to understand. It's not going to come out because you have to have this 0. It's always going to be 2 digits per letter. You can do these even more complicated and make it 3 digits per letter or whatever, if you really want to go crazy with it. But you cannot just do 8. It is a 0, 8. Just like if it was 1, 8 for K, you can't just put 8, because it is 1, 8. So just don't forget that. The reason I keep on harping on that is because when I was first trying to figure out how these things work, when I was going through the site that was showing me how to do it, they didn't mention that. So when I was doing this by hand and trying to follow along and write my own messages, when I was trying to decipher them, they weren't coming out correct at all. And I finally figured out that I was not putting a 0, 8 or a 0, 1 when it was a 0, because they actually didn't put a 0, they just had a blank space, and it was assumed that you would put 0, 1. Anyways, just trying to help you avoid any kind of headaches that I had. So now we have the first part of our message. That is the English letters translated into numbers from the cipher there. And the second part is we're going to use the key to actually encipher it, to make it encoded and unreadable. So for example, we're just going to use this as our key. It's just a string of not really random numbers that I just kind of ran my fingers across the keyboard. And before we go ahead, though, and show you how to do this, I want to mention one more thing about keys. Let's just say that our one-time pad looked like this. We have our letter number cipher, and we have our keys. And as you can see, we got 5 keys listed here. You can see the keys are listed under key. However, you'll see the authenticator, and this is not necessarily something, I've seen this a lot really, is they'll just take these first numbers right here in the key, but I don't like to waste any more time, and you could probably make this a little bit more intricate and have authenticator 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or something like that, and then that number can be added, but I'll just tell you how this works. And the authenticator number, was to say for simplicity's sake, is 8701 for all these keys. This is so that you can authenticate the keys used, so both the sender and the receiver are on the same page. So you send using 1, this key, but maybe your receiver is thinking that you've already used 1 for some reason, and now he tries to decipher it with 2, and now he's going to be lost in the sauce because he's not going to be able to figure it out, because this is not the key to decipher it. It's going to be garbled nothing. With this authenticator, he's going to be able to know, okay, it is on this page, or maybe he's on a completely different page. Maybe he assembled his one-time keypad wrong, and this page, page 1, was actually on page 3 or something. And this is so that you can be both on the same page. As you will see as we continue along using the key to encipher the message, we'll use the authentication number. This is to be put in front of the enciphered message, not the key. Just don't worry about the authenticator until you've actually taken the whole thing and gotten your enciphered message that you're going to send to your friend. Once you have that message, which will be a string of numbers as well, you're going to put this in front of it. And the easy way to do this, but the slightly less secure, but the only way that they're going to be able to know is if they have a copy of your pad, really. But let's just say, for simplicity's sake, that the authenticator is 8701, and you're using the third key. So the number you'd put in front of your enciphered message is going to be 87013 to show that it's this pad and the third key. And just remember this when we get farther along. I'll come back to it, but just kind of want to have this in the back of your head when I get to it, so it's not kind of like what's he talking about. So now we're back to sending the message. What you're going to do now is add these numbers. You have the message, which is, hi, I'm John, I'm fine, okay, or whatever. What were we doing? Hi, I'm okay. I'm sorry. So now this is hi, I'm okay, just using that letter number cipher, and this is our key. You're going to add these numbers. So in the first line, it's 0 plus 8, which equals 8. And this is going to be what we call the ciphertext, or the enciphered message. It's basically the crypto message that you're going to be sending. So 0 plus 8 is 8. But next in line is 8 plus 3, which equals 11. So why do I have a 1 there? We cannot put 11 there, or it's just going to throw off the message completely. So what we do is use the last digit of the number. So 8 plus 3 equals 11, which we just put the last digit, which is 1. 0 plus 7, 7. 9 plus 2 is 11. So we put 1. 0 plus 0 is 0. 9 plus 2 is 11 again. So 1. 1 plus 7 is 8. 6 plus 8 is 14. Using the last digit, it is 4 down there. Then 1 plus 1, you can see as it goes along. Do the addition yourself on some paper and make sure you understand it correctly. Don't look at this part anymore. Just do this and make sure you understand just follow along. Now we have an enciphered message. The remaining numbers in the key will be dropped. So as you can see, 8 plus 0 is 8, and then we have 2, 7, 8, and then all these zeros here. And you're just going to drop you're going to drop the 2, 7, 8, and all these numbers right there. And it's almost ready to be sent. And remember just a minute ago where I mentioned the authenticator key. So now your message to be sent, that's actually going to be translated into English eventually, what you're saying, is right here. But what you're going to do is add the authenticator key in front of it. So let's just say the authenticator key, just forget the one that we did before. Let's just say for this one-time pad, the authenticator key was 4029, and that the key we used was the 8th key. So there was 7 before it, so now we're using the 8th key. So it's going to be 4298, and that's going to show that it's this pad with the 8th key, and now that's your number. I don't necessarily recommend, since you're getting this off here, that you always use 5-digit codes. That you can use 3, or you can use 2 plus 1, or have the number of the key in front, or something like that. Mix and match it. Do whatever you want to. There's no wrong way to do that. Okay, now we're going to be taking the place of the person that is receiving the message. So we just sent a message. This would be the number that you would send to someone who has that also has a copy of the one-time pad, and they would be able to decipher it. So we're going to show you how to decipher it. So let's use the same pad as before as far as the letter number cipher, just the simple training one. And the key is this. And I'm going to change the message from what we sent so you can follow along and figure it out for yourself. So write down the cipher and the key on some paper. So you can either write this down or copy it and put it up in a different window, and then copy this key down. Graph paper works very well. For me, it's a lot easier for me to separate it and everything. So this is the message we just received: 429-880-616-72145-722. So what we're going to do now is look at the first 5 digits. 40298. This is going to tell us that it is pad. That is the pad with 4029 as the authenticator key, and we're going to be using the 8th key. And that key is the one that I already gave you at the beginning in the last slide, but it is this key. So you can see how that'll help you figure out, so you can make sure, just in case, let's just say your friend sent you a message before with the 7th key, and it never got to you. So using good operational security, you wouldn't reuse that key again. You would go to the next key, and then they send you this message, but as far as you understand, you're still on the 7th key. So if you're using the 7th key, not knowing what key you're on, it would come out a garbled message. So this is where these authenticator keys come in handy. So we're going to take the message, And this is a ciphertext message, and as you can probably remember, when we got back here, this is kind of a reverse order. We had the original English message translated into numbers. We used the key and we added it, and then we got the ciphertext. And now we have the ciphertext, and we put the key below it. But we're going to be going in, opposite order. We're going to be going backwards. So we're actually going to subtract this number from this number. When you send it, you add this number to this number. When you subtract it, you subtract this number from this number. So, the first one's pretty easy. 8 minus 8 is what? 0. Where it gets a little bit tricky and kind of trips you up when you're first trying to figure it out, if you're not a math whiz, and I am not, when you reach a number on the top in the ciphertext that is less than the number below it, that would make a negative number. 0 minus 3 is negative 3, but we can't do negative 3. So what you're going to do is, in the highlighted red above, you can see 0 and 3. This would make it, like I said, a negative, which would not work. So whenever this happens, you add 10 to the ciphertext number. In this case, 10 plus 0 equals 10. 10 minus 3 is 7. And where's another one here? Let's just say if it was a 2 and an 8, you would add 10 to the 2, which would make it 12, then subtract it from 8, etc., etc. So 8 minus 8 is 0. 0 minus 3, that doesn't work, so 10 plus 0 is 10, minus 3 is 7. 8 minus 7 is 1. 6 minus 2 is 4. 1 minus 0 is 1. 6 minus 2 is 4. 7 minus 7 is 0. Now we come up 2 minus 8. That doesn't work. That would be negative 6. So you're going to do 2 plus 10 is 12. 12 minus 8 is 4. 1 minus 1 is 0. 4 minus 2 is 2. 5 minus 3 is 2. 7 minus 0 is 7. 2 minus 2 is 0. And 2 minus 7 wouldn't work. So we're going to add 10 to that. So it's 12 minus 7 is 5. We're going to drop these numbers. They're not going to factor in. So now that you can see this, you can pause this at any time. And you're going to take this message right now, and I want you to decode it using our letter to number cipher. So, which gives you 07, 07G, 14, 14 is O, 140. So we have GOO so far. Now try to finish it on your own. And pause it while you're doing this, because I'm going to move on to the next slide. You should have gotten goodbye as the message. If you didn't, go back and make sure that you subtracted correctly, adding 10 when the number would be negative, etc. So now we know how to send a message. Now we know how to receive a message. So how do you actually create the pad? I would personally use no more than 9 to 10 keys per pad. This is so I can, because I like to use the single digit number to indicate the key in the authenticator code. Like I said, let's go back here. With the keys, I've seen it used as well, where on each pad you'll have the string of numbers. Let's just say you'll have 10 of numbers like this, and what you'll do is on that pad, the authenticator code, you'll just write first 4 or first 5 or something along those lines. So when you get it in there, you go, okay, 8372, just the first numbers in the key is what authenticates it, and then you can move on, but it's up to you. I like to use it because I like to use the single digit number to authenticate the key, and 1 through 9 would obviously be, say it was the authenticator was 4029, so the first key would be 40291, ninth key would be 40299, and the 10th key would be 40290, and it would look something like this. The pad is, and you can do it however you want to. The reason that this is off to the left is because I was doing this in Excel. It works a little bit better in Word, but it's kind of up to you. So the authenticator for this 8701, and you have 1 through 9 here for all these strings of keys. These keys were actually developed in Formulab, FOURMILAB. Formulab. They do. If you just look up one-time pad Formulab, it'll come up to the site. They use a pseudo-random generator, pseudo-random number generator, which is, like I said, it's decent. I mean, it's a really low chance, but I mean, if you're going to be using the one-time pad versus other methods of encryption, you're doing it because you want something that's 100% guaranteed not to be able to be cracked, and it really isn't, because it's too random. If you use true random numbers in the keys and you don't reuse keys over and over again, then you only use them once. I'll get to that here towards the end. Then there's no chance that it'll ever be broken. The only way that it is if somebody gets their hand and makes a copy of your one-time pads. But like I said, I mean, in a pinch, if that's all you had available, I would trust it. But if you have the ability to get true random numbers, and this is kind of an idea of how it would look like. For the letter cipher, you can change it to look something like this. This is something I just threw together. Usually what you can do is you can, in 0 through 9 on the top, or if you want to do that in the bottom or whatever, I usually just pick 1 or 2 numbers up here to leave out, and then I put them down here, and then I just fill them in with other numbers. Like I said, you can have 2 and 2 here because there's only going to be 1, 2, 2, but you do not do 0, 0, 1, 1, 4, because you're going to end up with a bunch of the same letters equaling the same combination of numbers. But you can change it to be something like this, and as you can see, I have 1 T here, 1 T here. Sometimes I'll put extra L's and stuff like that, as well as in this case, since I'm using ZZ as the sign-off indicator, I have multiple Z's on there as well, and I've put it in 3 different places. And you can make your own and make it as complicated as you want to, and then as you're messing around with these and making them complicated, test them out to make sure that they actually do work and don't end up messing up messages and things like that, that you've, like I said, added too many numbers on one column or row. I already mentioned that. As you can see, in the left column, 3 is used twice. This is once again kind of reiterating. So if you had 3, 8, it could either be a J or a dash. In this instance, that would be easy, if you're saying John, come here. If it was dash OHN, you'd probably be able to figure out that maybe he meant John. But in other instances, it could mess up what you're trying to do. Ensure the safety of your keys. Never, never, never let it be seen by anyone else. So this means do not email them over Yahoo or wherever else they could be intercepted. Really, the best and most secure way to do this is hand carry these to the intended recipient. And wherever you are stored, make sure that these are stored, whether they are on a encrypted thumb drive like Iron Key, which I'll mention towards the bottom. If you have them on something like that, make sure that those are hidden and safe, and they have good passwords. I would go onto random.org. They have a section there where you can generate passwords that use upper and lower case, as well as numeric and other things in there to generate random and very secure passwords. I would memorize these or put that password in a very safe place, and then I would store that thumb drive in a very safe place. Same thing goes if you have it, on paper. Wherever you're keeping these keys and these pads, keep it extremely safe. Make sure that it never falls into the wrong hands. If you cannot hand carry it, let's say that you live in Texas and your friend lives in Massachusetts, I would box it up and I would send it through UPS or FedEx and have it wrapped and boxed in a way that tampering would be evident. One way to do that is some of those really thick tapes that when you undo them, then they can't be sealed again and they're tamper evident. If you have to mail it, I would recommend not sending it as a piece of paper. I would encrypt it on a thumb drive or even a CD or whatever media device you want to use, and this will make it very clear if it was tampered with, since it will never arrive at the recipient's address if you use proper encryption. to crack a 256-bit AES encryption system, which stands for asymmetric encryption system. Even the feds, it would take so many years and years and years and years to ever, granted, given its random nature, on their first try, through a forced decryption program, it could guess it, but really it would take years and years and years to really do this. So it would be quite evident if it was tampered with, because you wouldn't get it if you send it next day air and it takes 5 weeks to get there. I would probably redo the whole thing. I would use something like Xantum encryption for all your files, really all your files on your computer, even if they're just kitty pictures, pictures of your cats, whatever. I would encrypt all your files. Why? Because if for some reason some nefarious group, agency, or whatever was trying to do something on your computer and look in on what you're doing, it would waste so much time and resources that really, if everyone did this, then it would render the NSA spying programs pretty much unnecessary and completely a waste of time. But I really recommend the iron keys made by iMation now, or some kind of encrypted thumb drive. Then have the person use a computer, and really, to be most secure, is have some sort of laptop that doesn't have Wi-Fi and is not hooked up to the internet and doesn't hook up to the internet to print it, and have a non-Wi-Fi printer. And really, the best way to have this is have a computer just for this thing. And you can buy some old junker computer that really doesn't do anything, or still works fine, but people just go, I don't like it because I can't get on Wi-Fi and I can't connect up to the internet, and I can't, it's so slow, I can't watch YouTube videos. Get something like that. Get an old printer and just use it specifically to print these off. If this is not possible, make sure that your computer is clean and not infected with any spyware or malware. Take all those proper precautions, and to make sure that you're okay. We're coming up on the last slide. Okay. When you do hand off these keys to a recipient, do it in bulk, so that there's no need to put yourself in danger every week sending new keys. Have massive amounts. I mean, it takes a long time to put together these one-time pads and generate all the 100 plus number keys and all that kind of stuff. I realize it does because I do it, but it is worth it. Do it in bulk, so you're not having to do this every week and try to hand carry it or FedEx it, and it'll save you money then too. If you ever suspect, even with the slightest bit of suspicion, that there might be a possibility of the keys having been compromised, never use them again. Have these keys printed out and in multiple locations, so no one source can be found and all the keys are compromised. So separate them on multiple thumb drives or multiple places where you have them printed out. So if they find one, they don't find all the others. And then, I didn't mention this while we were doing the sending and receiving, but after every message sent or received using a specific key, cross it out and never use it again. Ever. Never, ever, ever use it again. That's the whole point of these one-time pads, is that they're one time. So when you send a message using, say, the first key in that message, or for that message, you cross it out. Run a Sharpie across it. If you want to devise a way to have these keys so that they're kind of hanging down like Chad's, like a lost dog poster, you rip them off, burn it, get rid of it, shake up the ashes. And when you receive a message using a certain key, cross it out. So if you receive it using the third key, you don't send back a message using the third key. You go to the fourth key. So, and you just never reuse them. So the way that I had it on here, once you get to the ninth key, rip this page out, burn it, never use it again. Once all the keys have been used on the pad, like I said, destroy it immediately. Burn it is the best way. And this has been kind of a down and dirty and really easy way, and you can customize this however you want to, as long as you use the same basic principles. and this will ensure that it is 100% safe and secure as long as you keep these pads safe and secure. So, in short, the conclusion compared to other methods of encryption is it's not as easy as just putting someone on an iron key drive and sending it off. But this also, when I said don't send the keys over the internet through your Yahoo email, that is true, but you don't have to send every one of these one-time pads. Put it in a Word document, put it on the iron key, and send it to somebody. Now that's really making it especially secure. But really, the beauty of this is you can actually just send this in an email. I'll talk about steganography in a different presentation. And steganography itself is the art of hiding messages, not encoding them. It is not making them random bits of numbers like we just did. It's actually hiding messages. So let's just say you put this in all white. The only way you could see it is by highlighting it, type of deal. Or the way that some groups have done is they've actually hidden it in the code of pictures and other ways, but I'll go over that in a future way. But you can really just send this in a Facebook message to somebody, and if it gets intercepted, then they won't be able to break it. That's really the beauty of it. So you can send this over unsecured lines. Putting it, I would really recommend probably using Xantum, which is only 128-bit. It's not as good. You want to have a very secure password for that. So you're going to have a separate list of passwords for these files here. And if you encrypt it, because you'll need the password to decode it. But really that would put an extra level of security on there, which you really don't need, but if it floats your boat, you can do that. So you could go in a Word document and put that whole string of numbers of the ciphered message, encrypt it with Xantum, send it to somebody, then they use that key, a separate one-time pad, I guess, of keys to decrypt the actual encrypted file, and then the key to actually unencrypt it or decipher it using that key to get the actual message. So you can double it up if you really want to, but the beauty of these one-time pads is you don't have to. So I hope that you guys learned some stuff and enjoyed the show. And if you have anything that you want to comment on, please write comments below in the YouTube. You can go to the main site at www.greatnorthernprepper.com. We're on Facebook and Twitter. You can also join up to become a member of the site and get access to a lot of good discounts. And thanks for listening. And you can always email me also as well at all lowercase, no spaces, rmorgan@greatnorthernprepper.com. Thanks for your time.
I wore out my shoes in that wrong way to run. I blistered my skin working hard in the sun. Supper's almost over and I done cleaned my plate, and there's a light shining yonder, boys, I don't think I'll wait. I'm a laid back one and I've been one so long. I ain't perfect, you can tell by my songs. Brothers, forgive me for all of my wrongs. The good Lord, He's calling and it's time to go home. I hear Him calling and it's time to go